Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Alfonso, and I'm your host with the Florida Aviation Network. We are broadcasting free and in the clear from the terminal building at the Sebring Regional Airport in Sebring, Florida, during the U.S. Sport Aviation Expo 2017. Today, our guest is Les Smith, Senior Director, Pilot Community Development for AOPA. Les, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Diego. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's great to have you here. It's great to help AOPA to spread the word out there. They've been doing for so many years and helping so many pilots out there. So it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Now, I understand you have some very important points to cover today, and they involve the You Can Fly program and its 4 initiatives.
That's right.
All right. Well, you own the airways now, so let's inform the folks about what this is all about.
Okay. Well, we know that the pilot population has been trending downwards, and it's been for some time. And there's no single magic bullet that's going to fix that. So we have something that's a collection of 4 different initiatives, and I want to go into each one of those and talk about how they fit together and how we're using those to try to move the needle in the other direction.
Okay.
The first one would be the high school initiative. The high school initiative is focused on providing a deliverable product to high schools and to school administrations that has a STEM-based aviation program. With that, and we're starting out with 9th grade, we'll move on into 10th, 11th, and ultimately 12th. We're working with Purdue University to develop that curriculum. We've had 2 seminars or networking events. The last one was in Seattle, Washington. We had over 200 educators attend that. Educators, administrators, students, teachers, and they all said that they all were very excited to be able to have the opportunity for that program, and they're very excited to start bringing that aspect into the schools. Mark Baker had an aviation program in his high school, and he gives that some credit as to getting him started. So we really like that. So the high school is the first step in getting folks interested and aware and understanding what kind of opportunities there are in a career in aviation, because as we all know, there's much more than just pilot.
Exactly.
So that's step 1. Now, if we've got your attention as someone who's learned that this aviation industry has a lot of opportunities in terms of ways of enjoying it and making a living, the next step is flight training. So we have a flight training initiative that's focused on improving the outcomes of flight training. We know that somewhere between 20 and 30% of those who enter their private pilot training actually complete it. That's a horrible washout rate.
Exactly.
And we want to see what we can do to improve that. So developing tools and resources to help flight schools improve those outcomes is all what the flight training initiative is all about. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a bunch of schools out there, and they know what they're doing. They do it very well.
Of course.
So one of the things we do is we have a flight training poll. If you've in the last year have had any kind of flight training experience, whether it was as your private license or whether you were working on just a flight review.
Right.
Anyway, either of those, we want to hear about your feedback on what was your experience at the school and what was your experience with the instructor. And by getting that feedback, we think we can learn more about what makes things work. One of the things we hear is a flight school that creates a sense of community and a sense of belonging. And that seems to be a real important aspect for creating a successful experience and a successful outcome for a student.
Sure.
You know, if you're by yourself and you go home and you're tired of it and you can't figure it out and you've hit some sort of training plateau, if you have someone around you that belongs, feels like they belong, and is encouraging you, as yeah, I know what it's like. I couldn't figure out that flare either. If it's something like that and you have a community around you, it really helps you make it through the process. So the flight training pole figures out and learns what really makes excellence in a school. And we use that and turn that around, and we recognize flight schools all across the country that do well in that. We had over 200 schools that we recognized, any number of instructors that we recognized, and we're learning that in the industry, people are pointing to that and saying, yeah, we're using that as an advertising tool when we advertise our flight schools. So it's helping there as well.
Exactly. Now, you also, I believe, have something to say about AOPA ambassadors.
Yeah.
Would you please let us know?
Well, two of those initiatives, high schools, flight training. The third one is flying clubs, and the fourth one is the Rusty Pilot Program.
Okay.
The ambassadors are here locally, or they're located around the country. We have a cadre of 5, one of which is Jamie Beckett right here in Florida.
Yep.
But also folks we have Pat Brown in Texas, Kay Sundrum, Southern California, Andy Miller up in the Great Lakes, and our newest ambassador just came on board, Norm Eisler, is up in New York.
Okay.
They're the feet on the street. They're the folks that are taking the tools and resources that we've developed in Frederick, such as that flight training pole,
Yep.
and helping turn that feedback back to the schools and working locally. They're the ones who are doing the Rusty Pilot Program, for instance. Jamie's right next door right now doing a Rusty
Yep.
Pilot seminar.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of the ambassadors. They're a free consultant for someone
That's
who
right.
wants to start a flying club.
And Jamie in particular is pretty active in the area.
Oh, he's
Because
yeah.
I know.
We keep asking Jamie for his fingernail clippings, but he hasn't done it yet. You know, we want to clone him. But anyway, so the flying clubs, we've had some real good successes there. We had a goal last year of creating 20 new clubs. We actually created 25. And we also had a contest last year to give away a 150 to...
I saw that.
Yeah. So we had 57 clubs that were eligible, that fulfilled all the eligibility requirements. And the winning club was Nate Abel Flying Club down in Fort Worth, Texas. And the way they won is they just hit every check mark that we look for in terms of excellence in a flying club. They just kicked it all. Nate Abel was a young man who was a spark plug on his airport. He was active in the community, did a lot of Young Eagles flights. He was a volunteer fireman, and every airport loves to have
Exactly.
someone like that, you know. And he passed away from cancer at late 30s.
Wow.
They went on to organize Fly Kids for Nate. They have raise funds. They wanted to start a club. They wanted to win that 150 so that they could teach kids how to fly.
Right.
We awarded them the airplane in October. They did their first flight on January 1, and they have since doubled the size of their club. They have 3 students in progress, and they just had a Rusty Pilot get checked out and back in the left seat after 60 years. He's
Oh my
85.
God.
He's 85. It's wild.
I think that's a record right there.
It might be.
It might be, I think.
But we find it, but for every 10 years, you know, you need an hour or two back in
Yes.
the seat. Something along those lines.
You never forget everything, but
No.
it takes a little bit of time with time. The more time you haven't been in the cockpit,
Sure.
it takes a little bit more time to get back up to speed.
That's what happens.
So now on the okay, so these are the ambassadors.
Ambassadors.
Now, as far as the flying club, could you elaborate a little bit more on what is what is the role of AOPA in the flying clubs directly?
Well, we've helped start flying clubs. Last year, that 25 clubs, they're from Columbus, Georgia to Columbus, Montana.
Right, right.
And Vermont and Southern California. We have a lot of online resources to help out with that we can point people to and help them with.
Okay.
It starts with a checklist because, you know, hey, we're pilots.
Exactly.
We love checklists. And then there's there's a resource library of articles that matches up with each of the items on the checklist. So the very first item on the checklist is find out if there's an interest at your airport. Go to read the article. It says, hey, drag the grill out, fire up the grill, roast some hot dogs, and put a couple posters around the field and get some folks out and see what interest there is. And that's the way it starts. The next thing on the checklist is, what kind of flying do you want to do? What's the opinion of the group of people that you've gathered together about flying? Do you want something low and slow? Do you want a travel machine to visit the grandparents or the grandkids on the weekends? What are you looking for? And the checklist and the articles take you through that process, and all the way through to where you acquisition of a plane, how to organize the business, because it is a business.
Right.
The successful clubs, the ones that have been around for a long time, they've got a handle on the business aspect of it. Even though it's a nonprofit, they've got a handle on the business aspect, and they're creating a sense of community. The value of a flying club, according to the research that we've done, there's two things that come out of that research very prominently. One is the affordability. When you get when the bill comes in for a muffler replacement or an alternator, instead of the full bill, first thing you go is, there's 5 people in this club. I'm getting an 80% discount on this alternator. That's one, and that's very obvious to everybody. But number 2 is that sense of community again. Let's get together. Let's talk about flying. Let's go somewhere on Saturday morning for breakfast. That community is what keeps people engaged, and the successful clubs are the ones that build not only a good business sense of and create that affordability, but create the community and the sense of belonging. Go ahead.
No. That's wonderful, because it makes you part of something. You know, and you help to create something.
Right.
And that is a good feeling for humans, I guess.
It is. Well, I think at our core we're still tribal people. We like to hang around the campfire, and if we can tell a flying story on the way, we're even better.
That's right.
And a
That's
flying
right.
club
You
gives
got that
a place
right.
for that.
And it's like you never hear anybody say to you, "Here, try this potato, see how good it is." But hey, take that rib, see how look it is, because that goes back to the beginning.
It does. You're right about
how
that.
we used to do things.
So.
And I guess this is the same concept. In other words, that something in common gets us around, and makes us feel good to stay around.
Sure it does.
And I guess that's the message behind the whole thing. Now, I always like, when I do these interviews, to, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like that, but, our viewers are pilots. They're all involved in aviation somehow.
Yeah.
And what I would like to ask you is to share with us, if you can go back to the day that something happened and Les said, you know what, I want to be a pilot. How did that come about?
Well, I have whatever genetic makeup it is that when an airplane flies over, I look up. I mean, that I think is genetic, because I think there's a group of people that do that, and hopefully they find their way here.
That's right.
But my earliest recollection is my father never had his license, but he always had friends who flew.
Okay.
And he would take me along. So I've got a photo of me at about 5 years old with his hands on my shoulders, sitting next to a cloth tail dragger, and his buddy, and the 3 of us hanging out. And I know from his telling me that we had just flown.
Okay.
I think I remember it. I'm not sure. But I went on finally to get my license. My uncle had his license, and it was seeing my uncle fly that told me that this is accessible. This is something that I can do too.
Exactly.
And he encouraged me. And then I started my training in Manassas, Virginia, and you just happen to have a sound engineer here who was my first primary instructor. John's right over there. That's extraordinary.
I think his last name is what, McElroy?
McElroy.
Yes, I think so.
Yes, indeed.
Isn't this a small world, huh?
Yeah, it is. I love it. So that's how I got started. That's what I did. I was active when I lived in Washington State. I was active with the Washington Pilots Association.
Okay.
And that's what got me connected with AOPA.
Right.
Because with them, I walked the halls of Olympia on some legislative issues. I worked with AOPA on some airport issues. And then ultimately this senior director job came along, and it was an opportunity. And I just jumped for it.
Oh, of course, and it doesn't get better than this. Imagine getting paid to do this.
I think I'm getting paid right now. This is incredible. Thank you.
That is a great thing. But AOPA through the years, like I say, I'm a member of AOPA. I don't remember when I joined because that was something that I did so long ago. I mean, and it's such an organization that is always on the forefront of how to help the pilot community.
Yes.
And I recently, and I was chatting with you before, I was involved personally in a Rusty program.
Oh, good.
And I'll tell you, there were 20, I believe it was 23 people in the room. And again, different times. In other words, some of them haven't flown in 3 years, 4 years, but others have been 20 years, 25 years. Not as much as 60, but I think there was one that was like 31 years. At the end of the session, if I remember correctly, it was broken down in 3 different fashions. We try to get them up on regulations, then weather, and there was something else. Anyway, you could see the enthusiasm building up.
Okay.
As the seminar progressed.
Well, the people that come to a Rusty, they know they've been away a little while. They're not quite sure what it is they've missed in that interim, and you're concerned that it'll bite you.
Right.
And so going to the Rusty, the first thing you learn is all these things come flooding back. I remember this. I remember this. There's some new things. There's some things that's changed, and that's part of the value of the program, is to bring you up to speed on those. But it's the reassurance of remembering and recollecting and bringing that back. That's what, you come out of that, you've got the ground portion of your flight review. We try to organize them with flight schools or flying clubs so that they can step right over into the left seat and go flying and get their flight review portion done.
Exactly.
Now, we did 156 Rusty pilot seminars last year, and we had over 5,000 attendees, and 3,400 of them tell us, because we follow up and ask, are you back in the left seat yet? 3,400 of them told us, yes, I'm back in the left seat. We've got a success rate of better than 40%, better than 45% actually. Now, Mark Baker likes to say, we don't need millions of new pilots, we just need thousands. So the Rusty Pilot Initiative, just by itself, is building thousands of new pilots. So.
I totally concur, and I saw the results, and this was done at a school. And actually, this school has just been nominated, or AOPA had a big write-up. It's flight professionals in Orlando.
Oh, yeah. They were one of the recognized by the Flight Training Excellence Bowl.
Exactly, and they're a terrific school, and they donated. They were the ones that created the environment so that the Rusty program could take place. Well, I believe that out of 23 or 24, I would say 8, 9, maybe 10 signed up.
Yeah.
Just to get back up, starting the flight review again, to bring everything back to, and some others were asking, I need a medical, so where is the address to go and do and get my medical so I can get back on the horse again.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good program all around.
We've even improved on it, if I may.
No.
You were talking about categories of topic, and we used to teach it by moving through those categories. Okay. We do it now what's called scenario-based. Okay. So we tell a story. You're in Sarasota. You're in Sarasota. You need to drop something off here at Sebring, and you're going to fly on up with your family to somewhere around Orlando. I don't remember which airport. Okay. But in so doing, you've got to talk about the weather. You've got to talk about the airspace. You've got to talk about all the things that we want to cover in the course of that Rusty, and it's a story. And if I go back to talking about hanging around the campfire, the other thing we did was tell stories. So we remember by story. Exactly. And using the story of the scenario-based method of education taps into that, and it sticks.
Of course, because here's the thing, as I was saying to you before, I was an examiner for about 28 years of all ratings, fixed wings, not helicopters, but fixed wings, from private to ATP. And one of the things that I found is that, you know, the four laws of learning. You know, you have rote, uh, understanding, application, and correlation.
Yeah.
And when you do the scenario type thing, is the correlative
Yeah. That's
type.
right.
That is the graduation, because now
Is it? Yeah.
because now you're able to take A, B, and C and mix it with D, E, and F.
Right.
You know, whereas
Exactly.
when I ask you a direct question, and I used to do that in my check ride, if I ask any pilot, what is the cloud separation and visibility requirements for VFR day?
Right.
And they'll go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 152, and they'll tell you that.
Yep.
But if you say to the pilot, now you're going from Jacksonville to Macon, Georgia, and now you notice that the visibility is not quite good, what does that tell you? See, now is the reverse.
Yep.
Now they have to come up. And another good correlative question that I used to ask is, who controls Class E airspace?
Class D?
E. Echo.
Echo. Okay.
And they will go, ATC. I said, no. It's VFR. You're in Class Echo. The pilot controls Class Echo. Because you're the one that have to determine, do I belong here?
Yes.
No, I don't. Then let me go to Class Gulf airspace, because I can do that there. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's just, that's how finding the correlative end of it. That's what tells the examiner that the pilot, it's now ready to go out there and join the flying community, which we see also in the AC, this new standards coming out. I
Yes.
don't know if you're
Right.
probably familiar with them.
Uh-huh.
And the FAA is trying to do, working along with AOPA, trying to do all, I guess the idea is to produce a better product.
Well, a better product means a better pilot, right?
Exactly.
Okay, then.
Exactly.
So.
And not to lose them. Not to, you know, like you were saying before, we can call that a rate of attrition, I guess. You know?
Yeah, right.
And we were talking prior to the interview about, I think that a lot of pilots drop from flying because of self-doubt. That there is a
Of what?
self-doubt.
Oh, okay.
You know, thinking that that to be a pilot requires something exceptional, and in my opinion, the only requirement to be a pilot is that you have to have a burning desire to be a pilot.
You know, I think that goes back to community, you know, the sense of belonging, because it's that opportunity to talk about turbulence makes me nervous.
Exactly.
And someone else hears that and they go, wow, I thought I was the only one, because everybody, Les, you look so cool and calm, you know? Yeah, I learned how to stop gripping the yoke.
Exactly.
John would whap my wrist. It's just
Two fingers.
Lightly, Les, lightly. You know?
Two fingers.
But hearing that from someone else is encouraging that, yeah, you're not alone, it's normal, and you can overcome it.
Exactly.
And that's the value of that kind of community.
Another
that
thing,
is.
another thing that I point out, and I have it. I was telling you that I did a video. It's called "The Psychology of the Check Ride."
Yeah, you did.
And one of the things that I say is this: remember, usually, if you don't come from a aviation-oriented family, and you come back from the airport and you say to your mom and dad, "I'm going to be a pilot," what? Are you crazy? Because, see, they are not pilots. They have no idea.
Sure.
So they might. Anyway, I'm just informed that we have no more time.
Okay.
And we hate to stop this great conversation.
Well.
I'll tell you, had a great time. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Diego.
Wish you lots of luck with the program. And I'm in Orlando. I participated already on AOPA. And if you feel that I could be of help in any way, shape, or form, just let me know.
Thanks very much.
And we'll continue the work going.
I appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
And for our viewers out there in cyberspace, my name is Diego Alfonso, and I'm signing off with the Florida Aviation Network.